Hello there, this is Krummelur. Welcome to my studio. It's early summer and the festival season is about to kick off. I have a lot of new material that I want to play out. So in this video, I'll show you how I prepare everything for my live performances, including rendering out material from my project, picking out sounds, how I use different controllers to control my stuff and launch scenes and through transitions and all that. And also how I integrate a lot of hardware into my performances, like Eurorack effects and synth voices, things like that. So here we are in Bitwig Studio looking at one of my new tracks that I've been working on, and I'm gonna export the stems out of this, stem it out, so I have all the individual parts in my live project and can play them back individually or mix them together. First things first, kick and bass. So this is already grouped together into one group. The red and orange here. I don't need to have all this silence in the end. So probably just gonna need to export until here. But I am gonna keep the silence in the beginning so that it's easier to line up. Now, solo this group and let's go into export audio. Now we export. Kick and bass now rendered out. Let's move over to hats and claps. Sounds like this. All right, that goes until here, so we can make it just as big. Nice. Hats and claps. Hats and claps are now done. Let's move forward to this what's called dirty work. Dirty work. Now that we finished with the tedious admin work of rendering all tracks into stems, let's look at the results. So I have, as you can see here in the browser to the right, a collection of a lot of Krummelur tracks through the history that I've stemmed out, and I have lots of material that I can use for my live performance stuff. So let's look at the last track that I have rendered out, and I'm gonna grab that kick bass stem into my example project here, into track 1. And let's pick out like a small section here like so. Loop this, and I'm gonna grab the hats and claps and put them in track 3. Again, find a little section here that I want to loop, and we can go to a different track, maybe get some FX sounds in here. Okay, again, I'm gonna pick out a small section here. Let's grab something else, maybe a drone sound from a third project. And just for this exercise, again, I'm just gonna pick a small little loop. And now let's listen. So as you can see, it's pretty cool to have all of the stems, one in each track in my live project. This is the kick and bass, of course, some hi-hats and things. So that's pretty neat. And let's say, well, let's grab kick and bass from a totally different project and check that out. That would be something like this. And I can skip back to here. Let's add a launch pad and a launch control, and we open up our Bitwig Studio session. Using the launchpad, I can of course launch clips and scenes. And with the launch control, I can control the volume of tracks, send levels, etc. And work on the transitions between sounds and tracks. A quick demo of how I play clips and stems from different tracks, mix them together and work on transitions. Now, how about effects? Changing sounds on the fly. And for that I use my little Eurorack system for some hardware effects and filters. So let's turn our attention to that now. Turn this off for a second. So for this exercise, I'm going to use my trusted old little case from Bastel. And as an audio interface, I'm going to connect the Model 1 from Mannequin Audio. And as a first effect, let's add Prism from Qubit. It's a stereo filter with built-in bit crushing and a comb filter kind of delay. And then I'm going to add an FX8XL from Happy Nerding. It's a really great multi-effects module with lots of different cool effects. For this, I'm going to try out the reverb and delay effects. And the audio patching is pretty straightforward. I'm just patching out output 1 and 2 from the audio interface into Prism, Prism into FX8XL, and then back into the audio interface from FX8XL. Hooking up the USB, of course, to the audio interface, powering on the case, and then we move over to Bitwig Studio, and as you can see, I can have more than one audio interface connected at the same time, which is great. And setting that up means I have all the ins and outs of all audio interfaces available to my project. For my setup, I'm using hardware effect inserts on the return tracks, meaning that I can send any audio from any track out into the case and then back again. Here I've set up the little hardware effects device up with the outputs and input from the audio interface. I'm giving it a little bit of gain boost, and as you can see, there's a little bit of DC signal in the chain that I am remedying by inserting an EQ2 device to clear that out, but that's okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset all my effects so they are all dry, so to speak. And in a second I will send out a little like that, and Bitwig Studio will then calculate the latency for me. So that's very handy indeed. I'm setting up my sends as pre-fader sends, meaning that I can send out the signal only to the sends if I wish, meaning that I don't have to mix in any dry signal, and I can send out any sounds to be played only through the Eurorack. So let's try it out. I'm gonna start my session and I'm gonna send out just one of my sounds through the effects. Focusing on this particular track. This is the original dry sound. Now I'm gonna send some of that signal into the rack. I lower the volume completely on the track, meaning that you're only hearing the sound through the filter. A few different sounds in the FX8. As I've set it up as a send, means that I can introduce additional sounds into the same effect chain. So we bring in this droney, floaty synth sound into the same effect chain. As you can see, this is heaps of fun, but let's move forward and let's introduce a second effect chain. Okay, let's bring in the dual looping delay from MS4 as our delay module. Patching out output 3 and 4 from the audio interface and then back into Bitwig Studio input 3 and 4. Again, I'm going to use the hardware effects device to patch my ins and outs as a hardware insert in my return number 2, adding the EQ2 to remove some DC offset and then setting up my sends as pre-fader. Looks like I forgot to do the latency calibration, but it's okay for this exercise. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to send out a clock signal so that we can sync up our delay to our tempo. In the same return track, I am going to add a hardware clock out device from Bitwig Studio, which is a very simple device just to send out a clock signal that I can then send to the delay to sync that up to my tempo. Now, this is where I select my outputs. And we're gonna pick output number 7 from the audio interface, put that into the sync or the ping input of the delay, so we sync it up. And now I'm gonna send out a percussion sound through the delay and try out a few different settings. You can hear it syncing up nicely to my tempo. Now removing the dry sound. Now this delay is pretty cool because it also has reverse options. So let's try a different sound through the delay. So it can very quickly be pretty overwhelming, so we have to be careful with our levels and of course the feedback parameters. Alright, that's the end of this video. I'll be back soon with another one, maybe more details about my live performance things, hardware, or something completely different. We'll just have to see. Enjoy the rest of your day, take care, see you soon, bye bye.